I didn't throw the mug, but I thought about it. I stared at the screen so hard the photo might as well have burned itself into my retinas. There she was, Becca, wrapped around her boss like a red carpet around a celebrity's ankle. The partnership that really matters. Cute. Real cute. I hadn't even finished my damn coffee. The shot was taken at some conference in Aspen. Slick suits, fake smiles, and that god-awful blue lanyard she wore to every networking event, like it was the Victoria Cross. Her head tilted just slightly, her hand resting way too comfortably on his chest. And there it was, a perfect little gallery of likes from their coworkers. Laughing emojis. Power couple energy. Hashtag dream team. One of them even wrote, finally. Finally what exactly? I didn't comment right away. I sat there. Let it stew. I remembered the last time she said she was too tired to come home early. I remembered the receipt from the wine bar that ended up in her coat pocket. 4 drinks, 2 plates. I remembered the half-button blouse that smelled like peppercorn and aftershave. But I said nothing. Instead, I clicked reply and typed, best of luck. No sarcasm. No punctuation fireworks. Just that. And I meant it, because that post didn't just mock our marriage. It activated something she didn't even know existed. Something her father forgot. Something buried in a clause from 10 years ago. That's the problem when people get comfortable. They forget who wrote the rules. Oh, and if you've made it this far, I'll ask you one favor. Over 90% of people who listen to these stories never subscribe. But each new subscriber genuinely motivates the team behind these stories to keep pushing, keep digging deeper, and keep telling them better. So if you're one of the rare ones who reads all the way through, take a second to hit that button. It means more than you think. Anyway, she didn't text. Not right away. She was probably too busy basking in the fake spotlight she just created. Or maybe they were still drinking that celebratory champagne. She always liked Prosecco, claimed it gave her cleaner headaches. I always thought that was a dumb thing to say, but whatever. When the text came that evening, it was exactly what I expected. LOL, are you seriously mad about a photo? It's just office humor. Everyone knows we joke like that. Sure. That's why she cropped out the company logo. That's why her hand was on his collarbone like she was adjusting a tie. That's why she posted it without tagging me, without saying anything about the 3-bedroom I just finished renovating or the dinner reservation I had set for our anniversary. Just the partnership that really matters. I didn't take the bait. Didn't argue. Didn't beg for context. I just sent back one line. You'll want to talk to your father soon. No smiley. No sarcasm. And I know how that hit. Because Becca only does 2 things when she's guilty: over-explain or disappear. This time, she disappeared. Probably thought I was bluffing. That I was just emotional. She's used that word on me before. You're too sensitive, she once said. The night I found 2 wine glasses in the sink, and she swore she'd just double-poured for herself. She never understood. I don't shout. I plan. And she had just given me the green light I'd been waiting for since the day her father insisted I take a small equity stake in the family company. Just a formality, he said. Just a safety clause for optics. That clause, Article 6, subsection B, read, in the event of reputationally compromising conduct by a direct family stakeholder, designated contingency partners may assume expanded operational rights. It was buried behind 10 pages of boilerplate, but I had bookmarked it, and Becca just pulled the trigger. She called me that night while I was in the garage, finishing up what she liked to call my man cave projects, as if refinishing an old hardwood table with my own hands was somehow beneath the intellectual level of someone who sends gifts in work emails. My phone buzzed. Her face popped up on the screen, still the same contact photo from 3 years ago. Becca in our backyard, laughing in a sun hat. Alive frozen in pixels. I picked up. Didn't say anything first. Let her start. Her tone was breezy, like she'd just wrapped up brunch with old sorority friends. Hey, you saw the post, huh? I didn't respond. Oh, come on, she chuckled. It's just office humor. People were joking about it at the bar after the keynote. Everyone knows it's a joke. Sure. The kind of joke that tanks reputations, triggers silent clauses, and lights a fuse under a corporate chair I helped glue together. Still, I didn't take the bait. Becca, I said slowly, you'll want to talk to your father soon. A pause. Just long enough to make her recalibrate. What does he have to do with anything, she asked. But it was sharp now, like I'd poked something she thought I'd never touch. He's going to get a call, I said. You might want to be in the room when he does. She laughed again. That tight, nervous laugh she does when she's bluffing at poker. Okay, what is this, seriously? You're sulking. Is this about your ego? Because you've been acting weird for weeks. Ever since you stopped coming to the quarterly mixers. People noticed. That part was true. I had stopped going. But not because I was pouting. I'd already gotten what I needed, the access. The handshakes. The inside jokes people whispered when they didn't think I was listening. The repeated mentions of her close working relationship with Nolan, the boss in the picture. The same Nolan whose wife, Meredith, I'd seen cry quietly outside a charity gala in April while Becca pretended not to notice. Meredith had shaken my hand a little too hard. Said, "You have kind eyes." I remembered that. I remember everything. Becca went on rambling. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. I mean, do you really think a dumb caption is some kind of betrayal?" "No," I replied. "I think it's a pattern. But you don't need to worry about that anymore. Just talk to your father." Then I hung up. I didn't wait for the incoming tirade. I just placed the phone face down on the workbench and looked at the old toolbox my dad gave me before he passed. Bent metal latch, oil stains, initials carved into the side. RJ, his and mine. That box had outlasted every apartment, every leased car, every promotion. Real things do that. The fake ones just sparkle long enough to distract you. Becca didn't know I'd already moved funds. Quietly. Legally. With a compliance consultant who owed me a favor. She didn't know I'd started recording my access logs at the company a year ago, after Nolan accidentally logged in under her account and deleted a folder that held quarterly forecasts we both knew were cooked. She didn't even know I'd updated the trust we set up before her dad added me to the board. That trust, now routed through a holding company she couldn't see without a subpoena. I told myself I was paranoid back then. Turns out I was just early. Because Becca's arrogance wasn't new. It just had better lighting now. The truth is, I'd been watching her build this illusion for years. How she'd smirk at colleagues in front of investors. How she'd adjust facts in slide decks and call it storytelling. How she'd laugh about cutting corners with her work husband while pretending to be the face of legacy. She thought I was some outdated ornament, good for family barbecues and tax write-offs. But I'd studied her. Quietly. Like a virus under glass. And now? Now she'd posted the proof herself. Public. Permanent. Time-stamped. All I had to do was show the right people what she'd already shown the world. The email took exactly 47 seconds to send, including attachment compression. But it had been written over 2 years ago. Drafted. Refined. Reworded to sound neutral, even friendly. Like a concerned team member reminding the board of an overlooked clause. I'd let it sit in my drafts, untouched, until I had exactly what I needed. Sunday's photo wasn't just fuel, it was ignition. The subject line read, regarding Clause 12.6b, activation trigger. It went to 3 people. Becca's father, the company's corporate counsel, and the CFO, the only one who still treated me like I wasn't just some lucky in-law who married his way into the room. I didn't bother copying Becca. Not yet. The attachment was a PDF, timestamped from the day her father personally walked me through the original partnership, terms over cigars, and a bottle of Macallan. Back when he still believed in legacy and merit and all that nonsense he used to preach before Becca started talking over him in meetings. Clause 12.6b wasn't flashy. It was legal insulation, dry, vague, and forgotten by everyone except the guy who read every single page of the agreement while his wife called him obsessive for highlighting in 3 colors. But the language was there. In the event of reputation risk misconduct originating from a family stakeholder whose behavior may reasonably be interpreted as a threat to institutional trust or financial confidence, designated contingent partners may request a temporary shift in voting power and fiduciary oversight pending review. Lawyers speak for, if a family member screws up badly enough in public, the guy in the background gets the wheel. It was written during a different time, back when Becca's father was worried about his impulsive younger son, Blake, blowing up the company with a gambling scandal. Ironically, Blake cleaned up. Becca didn't. In the message body, I wrote simply, "Dear Stephen, I trust you've seen the public post made this morning by your daughter and our fellow board member. I'm reaching out not in malice, but out of duty. The optics of that image and its accompanying caption may trigger concerns among certain investor groups. As per the terms set forth in the 2013 amendment, particularly Clause 12.6b, I'm invoking provisional review and contingency stakeholder rights until this situation can be formally assessed. Attached is the signed agreement, with the clause highlighted. Respectfully, Richard J. Langston. No drama, no accusation, just legal chess." Because Stephen knew what that clause meant. He wrote it. And if there was one thing that man respected, it was the sanctity of his own words, especially when they were about protecting his company from scandal. He just never thought the scandal would come from the daughter he bulldozed half his staff to elevate. I sent the email. Then I deleted the draft. The rest of the day was quiet. But I imagined the moment he'd open that file. See his own signature on that scanned page. I pictured him reaching for the same bottle of Macallan we cracked when he told me, "I've made mistakes in people before. I won't make one with you." At the time, I believed him. For a while, so did he. And then Becca started parading around like she owned the place. Like the rest of us were support beams for her solo act. I watched her talk over analysts, lie to the marketing lead's face, and once, memorably, call the head of logistics a glorified mailman when she didn't know his mic was live. But Sunday's photo? That was a new level of stupid. Because when you caption a photo with your married boss, wrapping your arms around him like he's the one footing your mortgage, you don't just invite gossip. You invite scrutiny. From employees. From clients. From board compliance teams looking for someone to make an example of. Especially when that photo goes viral inside the company Slack channel with laughing emojis from half the product team and gets mysteriously forwarded to HR. That was the trigger, the one I'd waited for. I didn't need to argue. Didn't need to catch her in anything. She had written her own confession with the smirk on her face and the caption under that photo. All I had to do was follow the rules she'd forgotten existed. And unlike her, I had receipts. On Monday morning, I moved the first account. It was the joint one she never bothered checking unless she needed to split some frivolous expense she'd already charged to her business Amex. First it was the emergency savings, then the securities account tied to the trust. All of it partitioned, surgically, under my name through a holding entity we created during what she used to call our financial intimacy phase. Cute term. She read it in a couple's blog, somewhere between 7 ways to reignite passion and wine tastings as a love language. By Tuesday, the car lease was refinanced. In my name only. Wednesday, the deed transfer paperwork for the lake house we inherited from my uncle was filed, quietly adjusted to reflect sole ownership, courtesy of a clause buried in the inheritance terms that activated if any spouse was found to have compromised marital fiduciary trust. It's funny how few people read footnotes in wills. By Thursday, the family lawyer, my lawyer now, confirmed the filings were clean, invisible to casual checks, fully legal, 0 flags. And through all this, Becca sent me a playlist. No, really, a Spotify link, titled When Words Fail, Apology Vibes. The first track was Fix You by Coldplay. I didn't know whether to laugh or vomit. Later that evening, she called and left a voicemail, voice soft, like we were in a movie. She said she didn't want to fight, that things had gotten blown out of proportion, that maybe we could go away for a weekend. No Wi-Fi, just reconnection. As if Wi-Fi was the reason I watched her treat our marriage like a PR asset. She still hadn't spoken to her father. She still didn't know that Stephen had already replied to my email. Just 4 words, terse, and typed at 3:12 a.m. We need to talk. Not, let's be reasonable. Not, she didn't mean it. Just, we need to talk. And I knew exactly what that meant. He'd seen the clause, the timestamp, the signature, his signature. And in the background, the board, the compliance team, the whispering investors, always hungry for a chance to jump ship before scandal hits earnings. You'd think a woman who obsessively curated her LinkedIn presence would have realized how fast her posts spread internally. But no, Becca still believed she controlled the narrative. She still thought she could fix it with her usual weapons, charm, deflection, and brunch with the right wives. But the problem with ripple effects is that you never get to decide how far they go. And by Friday morning, one of her husband's friends, me, was getting messages from one of Nolan's wife's friends. Apparently Meredith had seen the photo, and Meredith wasn't just angry. She was active. She'd already sent an anonymous email to HR, alleging ongoing inappropriate conduct between 2 senior-level staffers, including social media displays that compromise workplace equity and performance assessments. HR had to investigate. Nolan was furious. Becca, still clueless, still thinking we'd talk things out over salmon and wine. So I gave her what she expected, silence, while she typed apology text that got shorter and more frantic. Are we seriously doing this? / you're being childish / can we just talk? I was on the phone with our accountant, the one who helped structure our post-tax strategy when we thought we'd retire in Portugal someday. We'd bought life together in fragments, shared debt, shared titles, shared passwords. But I'd always insisted on one principle: never let sentiment write your contracts. Now, I was cashing in on that stubbornness. The irony? I didn't even want revenge. Not really. I wanted clarity. And for the first time in years, that's exactly what I had. Clean ledgers, clean titles, clean hands. Meanwhile, Becca was out there thinking we were in Act 2 of a romantic misunderstanding. She hadn't realized yet that she was already in the credits. And the house lights were back on. I was loading mulch into the back of my truck, because some of us still believe in doing our own yard work, when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in years, Connor Sue. Connor had been my first real friend at the firm. Smart, unimpressed by flash. The kind of guy who didn't laugh when Becca introduced me at the Christmas party as her side hustle turned husband. He used to say things like, "Most people in this building wear masks. You just wear a tighter belt." We drifted apart after his exit to a tech consultancy in Denver, but we'd kept the occasional check-in alive. Nothing big. I answered without thinking. "Hey man," I said, brushing bark dust off my arm. "You still alive out there?" He didn't laugh. "You need to know something," he said flatly. "And I don't care if it puts me in the crossfire." There was a long pause. Then, "It's about Becca." My mouth went dry. "She's not just playing around," he continued. "This thing with Nolan, it's not whispers anymore. Meredith, his wife, saw the photo. And she didn't go to Becca. She went illegal. And to her board contact. She's already laid the groundwork for a formal ethics complaint." I leaned against the truck bed, silent. "She named Becca," he said. "Specifically. Not just Nolan. Said she's been manipulating proximity for months. That she's been coordinating press hits, fake performance metrics, probably steering him into conflict of interest territory." Meredith used the word orchestrated. I closed my eyes. "And it gets worse," Connor added. "Stephen's name, your father-in-law, it's now being mentioned in those circles too. Because he vouched for Becca, pushed for her promotion, tied her image to the firm's legacy pitch. Now investors are panicking." "How many?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected. Enough that strategic accounts flagged a warning. And compliance is sniffing around the marketing spend. They think some of her Q2 figures were padded. She's been funneling bonuses to contractors who never logged deliverables. "You hearing me?" I nodded. Loud and clear. "You didn't deserve this, man," Connor said, softer now. "People inside still respect you. Hell, a few of them wish you'd been louder the last couple years. But now it's going nuclear. You need to brace." "I'm already braced," I said. He paused again. "Then I'll just say one more thing. If I were you, I'd make sure I'm nowhere near the blast radius when her father realizes his retirement plan just walked into traffic." I thanked him. We hung up, and I stood there in the driveway, staring at the pile of mulch like it was going to explain how I'd ended up in a marriage where a man in Denver had to warn me about the woman I shared a bed with. But the truth was, I had seen it coming. This wasn't about a photo. It was about the pattern, the performance, the smug little half-smile she wore whenever someone questioned her authority, like she couldn't imagine a world where consequences applied to her. She thought her father's name insulated her. She thought being the public face of a legacy firm made her untouchable. She thought I'd always be the quiet one in the background, doing her taxes while she curated her image. But what she forgot is this: I never asked for a spotlight. Which means I don't care about losing it. Her father? That's a different story. Because Stephen built that company on whispers and handshakes. And now, the whispers were turning into documents. The handshakes were pulling back. And Becca was still walking around like all she needed was a new PR consultant and a Pinterest apology. What she didn't realize was that people weren't just watching anymore. They were waiting to see if the man behind the curtain would finally yank the cord. And I was holding the cord. It happened on a Thursday. Not dramatic. Not stormy. No thunder rumbling in the distance like some over-directed soap opera. Just a plain, overcast Thursday where Becca must have decided she was finally ready to talk. She never announced it in advance. She liked catching people off guard, believed that emotion trumped preparation. That's what made her dangerous in board meetings and unbearable in arguments. She counted on improvisation. I counted on documentation. So when she pulled into the driveway that evening, her usual power walk down the stone path, phone still in hand, I imagined she thought this was going to be her moment. The big reconciliation scene. Tears, raised voices, maybe even a dramatic bedroom confession about confusion and ambition and not feeling seen. Instead, her key jammed. Not because the lock was broken, not because the bolt was stuck, but because it was no longer her key. We'd upgraded the smart locks 2 weeks ago. She'd laughed when I insisted on the fingerprint pad and digital access locks. "Babe, who's breaking into our house? The HOA won't even let me put out Halloween skeletons." Now, the door didn't budge. I watched the footage later. From the Ring cam, she forgot I had synced to my personal cloud. She tried once, twice. then pulled the handle in frustration, stared at the keypad, tilted her head like maybe she'd misremembered the code she created herself. Then the realization. She rang the doorbell, twice, then a third time, longer. I didn't answer. Inside, the house was quiet, peaceful even. The guest room was lit, blinds drawn, and on the bed was a manila envelope. She found the back door locked too. And the garage. I'd rehearsed it all. She circled the property like a woman trying to remember what part of her life still belonged to her. Eventually, I unlocked the side gate from my phone. I didn't want her humiliated. I wanted her informed. She came in through the side, entered the guest room, and found the envelope. It was thick, but not chaotic. Everything tabbed, notarized where needed. A post-it on the front read, "All further matters go through counsel." Inside, asset division documents, prepared and executed. The home was now under a holding trust in my name. Her car lease had been terminated, its replacement covered under her own LLC, which, by the way, was under review for misuse of operational funds. Credit cards delinked, mutual accounts closed, photos and items boxed, not vindicatively, but methodically. Her closet space had been emptied into 3 leather suitcases that sat neatly at the foot of the bed. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't throw her things onto the lawn. Because anger is noisy, and I wanted her to hear the silence. It's a funny thing, watching someone realize they've misjudged not just the situation, but you. Watching their face fold inward as the math stops adding up. The same woman who once asked, "Do you ever do anything without telling me first?" had just walked into the answer. She called me 5 times that night. Left 3 voicemails. The first one was confused. "Hey, your locks are acting weird. Can you just call me?" The second one was angry. "Seriously? This is how you handle things? You block me out of my own house. You're overreacting. We're adults, rich." The third was quieter. "Breathy, I got the envelope. I didn't know you'd already." She trailed off. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent one message. Short, cold. "Counsel will be in touch Monday. Please don't return without a scheduled appointment." I watched the message change to read. Then I turned off notifications. She'd always loved the house. The kitchen island especially. Used to joke about hosting power brunches there for her favorite execs. She thought it was her space, her aesthetic, her world. But houses aren't built on color palettes and Pinterest boards. They're built on contracts, on foundation lines and asset maps and title records, on whose name is where and when. And while she'd been busy curating the look of a perfect life, I'd been securing the reality of one without her. She got the call just after 8 a.m. A curt message from HR. "Please report to Executive 5B at headquarters immediately. No delay. Not when you have a moment. Not at your convenience. Just immediately." Becca didn't do immediately unless she was the one issuing the command. An Executive 5B? That wasn't a meeting room. That was a triage bay. The room they used when something had to be contained before it contaminated the building. Still, she showed up with her usual air. Crisp blazer. Perfect posture. That practiced expression of faint surprise. Like she just stumbled into a conversation she'd already won. Until she saw who was in the room. Legal. Compliance. HR. No assistants. No smiles. And no Nolan. Her eyes flicked from face to face, calculating. She smiled, too wide, and said, "Am I late for something?" No one returned the smile. The lead counsel, Maria Alvarez, gestured to the chair. "Please sit." Becca obeyed, carefully. Crossed her legs like this was a PR debrief, not a disciplinary tribunal. Then Alvarez slid a folder across the table. Inside, screenshots. Printouts of her now infamous LinkedIn post. Her caption in bold. "The partnership that really matters." Another shot from Instagram. Tagged #grindwithgreatness. Same image, same man. A Slack thread from a private team channel she thought no one archived. Laughing emojis, a comment from her that read, "Might as well make it official face with tears of joy." And then the voice memo. Short, but clear. Her voice, unmistakable. "The real CEO isn't in the corner office. He's in my bed 3 nights a week." Becca blinked. Once. Twice. She opened her mouth. Closed it again. Then finally said, "This is a complete overreaction." Everyone knew that post was a joke. Alvarez didn't even flinch. The legal team has reviewed the public and internal content, and in combination with recent whistleblower reports, we're now opening a formal ethics investigation into conflicts of interest, inappropriate influence over performance reviews, and reputational harm. A second voice joined, Jeremy from compliance. Your proximity to Mr. Harris has been documented in over a dozen team assignments where objective rotation protocol was bypassed. There's also concern over your use of discretionary budget toward non-disclosed hospitality events. Becca's voice sharpened. You're twisting this. I've always operated in the company's best interest. I've generated record engagement and visibility. Alvarez didn't blink. This isn't about visibility. It's about governance and integrity, and your failure to disclose a personal relationship with a direct report who is now under concurrent review. Only then did she finally ask, "Where's Nolan?" The question came out quieter than she meant. Alvarez slid another folder across the table. Mr. Harris has submitted a formal statement denying any romantic relationship. He has volunteered to step away from all joint projects pending review. That one hit her like a car crash. Because Becca, brilliant, smug, and strategic, had never accounted for the possibility that he would cave first. That when things got messy, Nolan would throw her to the wolves to save his skin. She'd always assumed they were equals, that he'd go down swinging with her. Instead, he'd already lawyered up and drawn the line. There was a brief silence. Then Jeremy again, colder this time. You are being placed on immediate administrative leave. Company systems access will be revoked by noon. We expect full cooperation in the ongoing review. Your failure to comply may result in escalation to external legal bodies. She nodded stiffly. The only other sound was the faint whir of the HVAC and the scratch of a pen as Alvarez noted the time on a form. Becca stood. Her legs wobbled slightly. She didn't bother asking for a chance to explain. She knew. You don't explain your way out of paper trails and timestamps. You survive them, if you're lucky. In the hallway, she passed Nolan. He didn't stop, didn't look up, just walked past her like she was already gone. Which, in many ways, she was. She didn't even make it out of the parking garage before the first blow hit. Her corporate badge, normally a smug little passport to every floor, every lounge, every glass-walled space, she strutted through like she owned the oxygen, flashed red. Denied. She tried again, pressing harder this time, like maybe it had a glitch. Still red. Still dead. A security guard she didn't recognize walked over. "Ms. Langston," he asked carefully, "we've been instructed to escort you off the premises." Becca opened her mouth, as if she was about to summon the kind of fury that had once sent interns into therapy, but the words didn't come. Just a small twitch at the corner of her lips. Confusion mixed with the bitter taste of power evaporating. They didn't even let her go back upstairs for her laptop. "It'll be couriered," the guard said. Outside, she got into her car and opened her banking app, thumb hovering just long enough to feel the cold bite of dread before she tapped in her code. The screen spun. Then a pop-up. Access temporarily restricted. Please contact your financial institution. She refreshed. Same message. She switched apps, credit card, joint savings, even her own damn LLC. All frozen. Locked pending review. Per legal instruction. That was the line that did it. Legal instruction. Not fraud. Not security concern. She knew exactly who had made the call. Panic set in like slow water rising. She dialed my number. Straight to voicemail. The same man who once answered her calls while elbow deep in engine grease now sent her to a recorded message. My voice came through clean. Calm. "Hi. I'm not available. All further communication regarding personal or legal matters must go through my attorney. Contact info is in your email." Click. She sat in the driver's seat, staring at the phone like it might apologize. Like it might glitch and give her the old version of me. The quiet one, the predictable one. The one who showed up. Fixed things. Smoothed the edges. Instead, it gave her silence. And silence, for Becca, was more terrifying than rage. She tried my mother next. Straight to voicemail. Then Connor. Then Meredith. Then 3 old co-workers she hadn't spoken to in months. Nothing but rings, timeouts, or short messages that smelled like lawyers had rewritten them. It was only when she tried logging into her work email from her phone that she fully broke. "This account has been disabled. Please contact IT for further assistance." Her fingers trembled. That account had over 40,000 messages, years of contacts, leads, favors, back-channel deals. Gone. Her identity, her entire curated existence as the rising star, the unstoppable strategist, the face of modern leadership, was disappearing one authentication error at a time. And still, no one called her back. At the coffee shop near the office, people looked through her instead of at her. She tried ordering something. Just something normal, familiar. The cashier smiled awkwardly. "Sorry, your card's declined. Do you have another?" She left it all there. The latte, the card, the tiny sliver of dignity. In the car again, she opened her social apps. The post was gone, deleted, probably by Nolan's team, but the screenshots lived on. One was now a meme in a startup gossip group, her arm around Nolan with the caption, "HR's gonna love this." Another showed up in a Reddit thread about corporate implosions. She'd become a case study. She spent the rest of the afternoon in a parking lot, watching the battery on her phone drain like the life she thought she owned. 1% at a time. The thing about empires built on image is this. They fall quietly. No explosion. No CNN headline. Just 1,000 little privileges revoked. One tap. One swipe. One gate. One badge. Until all that's left is a woman in a luxury sedan she no longer technically owns, staring at the past through a glass screen that won't unlock. The courtroom smelled like dust and recycled air conditioning. Neutral beige walls. Wood paneling meant to feel dignified but looked like it had been ordered in bulk from a catalog titled Institutional Disappointment. Becca walked in flanked by her attorney, Margot Fine, the one with the fake smile and real sharpness, wearing a navy pantsuit that probably cost more than the average car payment. She looked composed, not confident. Those days were gone, but like someone who still believed in the power of performance. She didn't look at me. Not when she passed my row. Not when she sat. Not when the clerk read out the docket. She knew I was there, and I knew she was watching everything but me. Margot stood up first. "Your Honor, we're seeking an equitable division of marital assets based on 10 years of joint contribution, including increased valuation of the family business under my client's oversight." The judge cut her off with a raised hand. A woman in her late 50s, no nonsense, the type who didn't even fake interest in performative civility. "I've reviewed the filings," she said flatly. "The prenup, the partnership trust, the clause amendments, the attached exhibits from counsel detailing the social media event and subsequent ethics inquiry." She lifted the document from the bench. "This, Miss Fine, is not a typical marital dispute." Margot tried to pivot. "With all due respect, Your Honor, the post was taken out of context. It's not legally binding evidence of misconduct." The judge raised an eyebrow. "It's not the post. It's the cascade." She flipped the next page. 4 formal complaints. 2 conflict of interest violations. Misuse of discretionary funds. Undisclosed romantic involvement with a direct report. And, this is key, intentional obfuscation of co-owned resources during an active internal investigation. Becca's jaw tightened. Margot leaned in to whisper, but the judge spoke again. The respondent, she gestured at Becca without even looking at her, attempted to use institutional privilege for personal leverage, breached fiduciary obligations under both corporate and marital structures, and, per this clause, triggered the automatic forfeiture of any claim exceeding 35% of marital estate valuation. Margot opened her mouth again. "Final ruling," the judge said, firmly now. "The petitioner," her eyes flicked to me, briefly, "retains ownership of the primary residence, the inherited property, and the business trust holdings. The respondent is awarded a fixed settlement per Clause 9C, which shall not exceed the post-tax sum outlined in Exhibit F. Spousal support denied due to sufficient personal income and misrepresentation of financial records." The gavel fell, one clean strike. Becca didn't move. Not right away. The courtroom emptied in murmurs and shuffling heels, but she just sat there, hands neatly folded. The mask she wore so well, poised, polished, unshaken, was still technically on. But the cracks were visible now. The strain around the eyes. The set of her mouth, like she was chewing on glass. She turned, finally, and looked at me. The first time she had in weeks. Her lips parted. Maybe to speak. Maybe to reach for one last bit of dignity. But I stood before she could. No gloating. No smirk. Just a nod. The kind you give to someone who made their choices. She watched me walk out. Alone. Whole. The smirk she wore in that infamous photo, the one that said I control the room, was gone now. And this room? This room never belonged to her. It happened 1 hour later. The courtroom was barely behind her. The sting of the ruling still fresh in her skin like a sunburn she couldn't soothe. Her driver pulled around the back of the building, where the less important people entered, and she slid in without a word. No calls. No texts. Just a silent, vibrating panic beneath her designer blouse. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through emails she no longer had access to, checked credit cards that still wouldn't process. She shouldn't have gone back to the office, but instinct kicked in. Power was muscle memory. She needed to see something familiar. Her name still on the glass door. Her title still next to the plaque. She needed to believe she still belonged somewhere. The elevator dinged open on the executive floor. People saw her, looked away. No one smiled. No one offered that forced little wave she used to get from interns she couldn't name. She reached her office door, unlocked, weirdly, and walked in. The light was already on. So was he. Her father, Stephen Marks. The man who'd built the company with his bare hands, with his early heart attacks and late meetings, and those same wool suits from the 90s he refused to give up. The man who once said, "If you ever get lost, Becca, hold on to legacy. It'll outlive noise." Now he looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 days. His skin gray, eyes sunken, tie loosened like he'd forgotten how to wear it. He was holding a piece of paper in one hand and his phone in the other. He didn't speak right away, just stared at her like she'd just wandered into his ICU room in clown makeup. She froze in the doorway. "Dad." His voice cracked. He didn't yell. He whispered. And that was worse. "The company," he said. "His lawyer just called me." She blinked. "Whose lawyer?" He raised the paper like it was radioactive. "Richard's. Your husband's." He triggered the clause. Becca's breath caught. "What clause?" "The one I wrote," he snapped, voice finally breaking into a hoarse growl. "The one I buried to protect us from Blake's screw-ups. The same clause that gave him contingency rights if any family member compromised the brand." He sank into the chair. "Do you even remember it? Or were you too busy playing CEO on Instagram?" She tried to speak. Failed. Because suddenly, she remembered. The amendment. The post-nup addendum. That boring weekend in Tahoe where she skimmed legal language while sipping wine and flirting over Slack. Richard had asked her if she wanted to review it. She waved him off. "Just sign it, Rich. It's all formality anyway." She'd actually said that. "It's all formality anyway." Stephen stood again. He wasn't angry now. Just hollow. "Do you know what you've done?" he said quietly. "You didn't just lose your house or your job. You handed over my company." You gave him the trigger. And all he had to do was watch you implode. He paused, eyes narrowed. "What did you make him do, Becca?" She couldn't answer. She didn't need to. It all hit at once. Every conversation she'd ever brushed off, every red flag she'd mocked as overthinking, every condescending comment she'd dropped like candy on a conference call. She thought she was performing, but he had been preparing. Because while she was out there playing icon, Richard had been building his exit. Not just from her, but from them. All of them. She sank into her chair slowly, the full weight of what had happened collapsing over her like wet cement. Her father's hands trembled as he took out his phone again. "I have to call the board," he said. "They already know, but I still have to say the words." She didn't answer. He walked out without looking back. And for the first time, Becca didn't chase anyone. She just sat there, staring at the reflection in her black screen. No notifications. No calls. Just the echo of her own arrogance bouncing off the glass walls she once thought made her untouchable. The partnership that really mattered wasn't hers. It never had been.